When Mara first stepped into the house, the air felt still. Not dead, exactly, but listening. The place had been on the market for almost 2 years, and even the realtor looked relieved when she agreed to take it. It wasn't much to look at, a sagging 2-story on a dirt road at the edge of town, its yellow paint sun-bleached to gray. But for Mara, it was a bargain. Her divorce had eaten everything. A clean start, she told herself. A house to fix, a project to keep her busy. The hum began on the 3rd night. At first, she thought it was the refrigerator, a low, steady vibration somewhere under the edge of hearing. When she unplugged it, the sound kept going. It was faint enough that she could almost pretend it wasn't there, but sometimes just before sleep, she felt it in her ribs, a pulse that seemed to match her heartbeat. The next day, she stood in every room, one by one, trying to trace it. When she put her ear against the living room wall, she felt it again, a slow tremor, not electrical, not mechanical. Almost musical, she laughed at herself. Houses creak, pipes knock, wood moves, she muttered. She said it out loud because silence in that house pressed too close, like heavy fog. By the end of the week, she stopped telling herself it was nothing. The hum was strongest near the basement door, a door sealed with 2 rusted bolts. A handwritten label still clung to the paint. Do not remove. That night she dreamed of knocking. So, end up knocking. 3 slow knocks, deep and hollow, coming from under her bed. When she woke, she found herself standing at the top of the basement steps, hand on the knob. The house was quiet. She didn't remember leaving her bed. She told herself to leave the door alone. She didn't. The bolts gave after a few minutes of twisting, the metal flaking red dust. Cold air poured out as she opened the door, heavy and dry like the inside of an unplugged freezer. The light switch didn't work. The bulb overhead gave 1 weak flash and died. She fetched her phone for light and stepped down. Each stair groaned under her feet. At the bottom, she found a bare concrete room. No shelves, no furnace, just walls. The sound was clearer here, a deep, thrumming vibration that seemed to come from everywhere at once. When she shone the light around, the beam caught the surface of the far wall. The paint there looked different, bubbled and uneven. She stepped closer. The bubbles pulsed, barely perceptible, as though something behind them was breathing. The hum climbed in pitch, almost a voice, almost words, almost words. She thought she heard her name. She dropped her phone. The light spun across the floor, and for a split second she thought she saw movement in the wall, not behind it, in it. She ran. Back upstairs, she bolted the door and shoved a chair under the handle. The house went silent again. Her heart didn't. In the morning, she told herself it was exhaustion, stress, too much paint thinner, anything. She busied herself with small tasks, fixing cracks, replacing outlets. The more she worked, the quieter the house seemed, until she stopped moving. Then the hum crept back in, soft, patient. At night, it was louder. She tried recording it on her phone, setting the device on the hallway floor before she went to bed. In the morning, she played the file. For the first few seconds, there was only static. Then a tone rose. Low even, like a choir holding one endless note. Somewhere beneath it, faint but human, a whisper. Come down. She deleted the file. The next night, she dreamed of her husband. He was standing in the basement doorway, skin the color of dust. His mouth opened wider than it should have, the hum spilling out of him like wind through a broken pipe. When she woke, she could still hear it faint downstairs. By the 10th night, the vibration shook the dishes in the cupboards. The ceiling light swayed though there was no breeze. And then the 3 knocks. She waited a long time before moving. When she finally opened the basement door, the sound stopped, replaced by a silence so thick she could hear her own pulse in her ears. She held a hammer like a weapon and descended. Halfway down, her phone buzzed. A notification she didn't send. Voice recording. Auto-saved. She ignored it and stepped onto the concrete floor. The far wall pulsed again, faster now. The hammer slipped in her sweaty grip. She touched the paint. It was warm. The hum deepened until she could feel it in her teeth, and the wall split, not cracking but opening. Behind it was another basement. Same walls, same steps, the mirror of her own. And on those steps stood a woman holding a phone, light trembling across her face, herself. But older. The other Mara smiled, a dry, small smile that didn't reach her eyes. You heard it too, she said. It always finds a way through. The hum swelled, and the light from her phone blinked out. The neighbors said they felt a vibration that night, like a passing train. When they came to check the next day, the house stood empty. The new paint on the walls was flawless, except in the basement where a faint tone still hummed if you pressed your ear close enough. Sometimes hikers who pass the end of that road claim they can feel it in the ground, a low, steady note under the soil, pulsing like a heartbeat. If you stay too long, they say, it starts to sync with your own. Ben never believed in ghosts. Not really. He believed in lack of sleep, in exhaustion that made your eyes burn and your mind fill in shadows that weren't there. He believed in late-night feedings, baby monitors, and the slow panic of wondering if you were doing any of it right. When their daughter Emma was born, Ben and Alice moved into the old house on Linden Avenue. A squat, ivy-clung place with a broad porch and a single creaking step. It had charm, Alice said. History. The nursery had already been painted a gentle blue by the previous owners, and there was even an old wooden mobile above the crib. They both laughed when they found it. Meant to be, she said, smiling. For the first few weeks, everything was ordinary. The exhausting, beautiful kind of ordinary that comes with a newborn. There were long nights, bottles left half-finished on the counter, lullabies hummed half-consciously at 2 a.m. Then one night, just after 3:30 in the morning, the baby monitor crackled to life. Ben was half asleep when it happened. Static first, faint and irregular, and then something that made him sit up straight. A whisper, almost buried in the noise. "I'm not sleeping." He froze. The voice was small, childlike, but too articulate for a 4-month-old. He turned to Alice. She was already awake, staring at the monitor, sorrowing. "Wait, did you hear that?" she whispered. He nodded, trying to convince himself it was interference, another monitor nearby or some weird frequency bleed. He went to check. Emma was asleep, face turned toward the nightlight. Everything was still. The hum of the heater, the faint tick of the old clock on the wall. The next night, the voice came again. Same time, same soft whisper. "I'm not sleeping." Ben unplugged the monitor. The whisper stopped. He told Alice it was just electronics. These things pick up radio chatter, baby monitors, whatever. It's nothing. But that night, as he tried to drift back to sleep, he heard it again, faint, just at the edge of sound. He's awake. He sat up, heart pounding. The monitor was unplugged. The third night, he recorded it. He set his phone beside the monitor and hit record before bed. At 3 a.m., the whisper returned. When he played it back in the morning, the sound was clearer. Breathing, soft and slow, then a voice saying, "Don't leave her alone." The phone timestamp said the same thing every time. 3:33 a.m., he told Alice. She didn't laugh. Maybe it's someone outside. You said there's that old house behind us. Maybe someone's signal's crossing over. Ben wanted to agree, but the voice didn't sound like interference. It sounded close. Inside the room. He started checking the locks every night. A week later, Alice found an old photo in the attic while searching for baby clothes. It was a faded Polaroid, a couple standing on the front porch of their house, smiling down at a baby cradled in their arms. On the back, in neat handwriting, it read, "For Thomas. Sleep well this time." Alice showed it to Ben at dinner. He frowned. The realtor said the last owners were an older couple, no kids. Maybe before them, she suggested, but her voice didn't sound sure. That night, Emma wouldn't sleep in her crib. Every time Alice laid her down, the baby started screaming. Not fussing, not crying, but screaming. Alice held her close until she quieted, then gave up and brought her to their bed. Around 3:33, the monitor turned itself on. Ben jolted awake. Static filled the room, and then that same low voice. And barely audible. And there, he turned the volume all the way down. The static didn't change. "Unplug it," Alice whispered. He did. The static kept going. In the morning, he checked the monitor's feed on his phone. The video showed the empty crib, dark still, until the feed glitched. For a single frame, there was something behind the crib. Tall, thin. Ben at the neck. Ben shut the phone off. They talked about leaving that night. Just a few days at a hotel until they figured things out. But when he mentioned it, Alice shook her head. "We can't just leave everything. And what do we even tell people? That a baby monitor's haunted?" He didn't have an answer. 3 nights later, the whisper changed. Ben woke to the sound of the lullaby mobile turning in the nursery. Slow, mechanical music floating through the hallway. The monitor light glowed green. "Ben?" Alice's voice came from behind him. "What are you doing?" He looked at her, confused. "You turned this on?" She shook her head. Then the monitor crackled and a man's voice filled the room. Low, gentle, almost affectionate. He never did sleep well. Ben froze. Huh. Where with us, sir? Alice grabbed his arm. The mobile stopped spinning. Who's there? Ben demanded. His voice came out too loud, echoing against the walls. The monitor answered with humming, a lullaby he didn't recognize, but Alice's face went pale. That song, my grandmother used to sing it. How could? She didn't finish. Emma started to cry. Ben scooped her up, but the crying stopped the instant he held her. The room fell silent. The monitor stayed on. The light blinked twice, then died. 2 days later, they packed to leave. But that final night, Alice woke to the hum again, faint, beneath the floorboards. It was like the house was breathing. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Ben or the baby, and followed the sound down the hall. It led to the nursery. The air there felt wrong, still but heavy, as if filled with dust you couldn't see. The crib was empty. Her breath caught. The baby monitor clicked on. She's sleeping in the quiet room now, the voice whispered. Alice screamed for Ben. He came running, half asleep, panic written across his face. They tore through the room, checking every corner, every closet. The last door they opened was the attic hatch. Emma lay in an old wooden cradle up there, asleep. The cradle wasn't theirs. The police found no intruders, no signs of break-in. They did find a small crawl space behind the nursery wall, sealed with plaster and paint. Inside were children's toys, faded blocks, a cracked porcelain doll, and a broken baby monitor, identical to theirs, and a dozen photographs stacked neatly in a shoebox. Each showed a sleeping baby. On the back of every one, written in neat, looping letters, quiet room. They left the next morning. For a long time after, the nights were still. Ben got rid of the monitor, packed it away with the rest of Emma's baby things. But sometimes when the house is quiet and she's long asleep, he swears he can hear it again, a soft static hiss from the closet, followed by a whisper gentle as breath. Finally sleeping,